It was 7 or 8 years ago when a dear friend of mine invited me to his place. He's one of the neighbors at our Palm Valley campus, and he owns this large grove. And I never doubted how much work and effort it took to be a farmer. But he invited me. He said, "Hey, why don't you come hang out for a day and you can see a little bit behind the scenes of what it is to be a farmer in San Diego." And so, sure enough, took him up on the offer, showed up at his house bright and early in the morning. We immediately jumped into one of his quads, threw some saws in the back, and went out to his trees. And we spent the entire day, and I mean the entire day, just pruning trees, cutting limbs off that weren't needed anymore. And we were toast at the end of the day, and I realized, man, we barely touched a fraction of his trees. And over the years that I lived down in that area, and as I got to know more and more people in the area, I got to see a little bit more behind the scenes of the amount of time and effort it takes to basically turn these sticks in the ground into these massive fruit-bearing trees. And in no way would I consider myself an expert, but I started to learn a little bit about the watering schedule and nutrition and how they fertilize and how much light they need and how much space it needs because they need that much light. And even on cold days, how they go out in the middle of the night and turn on these windmills to push air through their grove, and they light these smudge pots, these big diesel fuels, so that they can keep the grove warm, so that their trees stay warm and their fruits don't freeze. And I started to get this new perspective, this understanding of that agricultural life, which began to change some of my understanding of some of the parables that Jesus taught. Hey Dosers, my name is Chase. I'm one of our pastors at our Temecula campus, and today I wanted to look back at one of those parables that I saw that it really changed my understanding of what Jesus was teaching. Because as he taught to his followers, being agriculturalists, they really probably understood what he was teaching. We've lost so much of that. And so as I started to learn more about what these grove owners do in order to make their trees grow, this parable took on some new light for me. We're going to look at Matthew 13, and in verse 31 it says, "He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds can come and perch in its branches." See, when I first read that growing up, I just thought of starting product, end product. You've got a little mustard seed, you end up with a big tree. And I completely overlooked the process that happens in the middle. The years of growth, the watering schedule, the sun, the fertilizing, the care that happens through there. And it made me reflect back on my life of, man, there was some intentional time and effort that my family put into making sure that I was getting the nutrition, the care that I needed in order to grow. See, my family, very early on, they made sure that I knew what the gospel was, but they also made sure that Tuesday and Wednesday nights I was plugged into youth groups. Sunday mornings I was still going to church, even with the conflict of birthday parties or sports or whatever I had going on. They made sure I was part of the children's programs. They made sure that we were doing Bible studies and I was learning how to pray, and they spent so much intentional time and effort making sure that I had the appropriate things to grow. And now I can look back and I can say, yeah, a lot of that, maybe it's just chance, but they did the things in order to provide a healthy place for me to grow. And I love the end of that parable, because it's not just that it ends up being a tree, it's that birds, they start to call this place home. It's a safe haven for others to come and see. And so the question that I want to pose for all of us is, if we look at the fruit and the growth that we have in our lives, are we happy with it? Can we see it? Because sometimes we get frustrated and we don't understand, okay, I feel like I'm doing things, but my friends aren't understanding who Jesus is, or I'm not seeing the growth that I want, or my kids are acting this way. And maybe if we don't see the fruit that we're hoping for or expecting, we need to go back and look at the watering schedule that we have. See, are we plugging in and making sure that those that are around us, they are getting the nutrition, the water, the sun that they need? Are they getting the little glimpses of the gospel of who we are by the way that we love and care for others? And so my question for all of us, look at that fruit. Because if there isn't that fruit, that spiritual growth that we expect in our lives, maybe there's an issue in the care, the amount of time, the amount of intentional effort we're putting to provide a place for that space of growth. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.